Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you 10 things that I think you should know before you send your kid to childcare. Ben has been going to childcare for 2 months now, and there are a few things that I kind of wish I knew and things that maybe I didn't entirely anticipate, and having spoken to a lot of other parents as well, they hadn't really anticipated some other things. So I think, you know, this list might help you if you're planning on sending your little one to childcare or daycare, nursery, whatever you call it, anytime soon. Just listen to these 10 things and hopefully you will be a little bit more prepared than I was. Before I get started, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy these types of videos, and also follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. I post many more regular updates on Instagram. That's kind of my main channel, so be sure to follow me there for more updates. And without further ado, let's get straight into the list. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about, I think it's quite obvious. There will be tears. Theirs and also very possibly yours. Some kids cry a lot, some kids cry a bit, some kids don't cry. I think most do, to be honest, once they start. I anticipated that Ben would cry a lot, but I don't think I was prepared for the extent to which he cried. A lot of people would tell me like, oh, mine just cried for 3 days and then they settled down, or mine cried for, you know, it was a rough 2 weeks and then they were fine after that. We went on for weeks, several weeks, and the crying was very intense. Thankfully we had a settling in period. Our school offered that, so he spent the first week doing 1 hour, then he was sick for 2 weeks, and then his second week he did 2 hours, third week he did 3, and then from the 4th week on he's been on 4 hours, because that's kind of the amount that we've stuck to for now. That really helped him, but for the first, up until he got to about 3 hours, he was crying the whole time while he was there. Some schools will call you after like half an hour to let you know, like, listen, you need to come and pick them up. It was not the case at our school, so he just cried the whole time. And I cried too. It is hard, it is very hard to see your child, you know, to leave them with complete strangers in an unfamiliar place. And it's also a big step. So, you know, you could be sending your kid at, you know, a couple of months or a couple of years. And I think no matter what age you send them at, you're going to have a bucket load of guilt as well, thinking like, oh my god, I'm abandoning my child. It's not the case. There are so many benefits ultimately, and yeah, I remember on his first day, Chris took the day off, so we went together. I cried like 5 times before we even dropped him off. The really hard part about it is that when you cry and when you're upset, your child feeds off of that, so they know, and they will get even more upset. So the general advice is that when you're dropping them off, smile and wave and act like you're perfectly fine even though you're dying on the inside, and then as soon as they take them away, you can burst out crying. That's what I did for the first 2 days, but then it gets easier and you start to understand, you know, that it's just a process, and you'll get through it, I promise you, but you have to stick it through. Yeah, there will be many tears. The second thing on my list, which is a very, very important one, they will get sick. This is a very important thing to keep in mind, because a lot of parents send their kids to childcare when they need to go back to work, and then someone needs to be at home when the kids are sick. So if you can, I would suggest like start sending them a few months before, if that's possible, because they will get sick. This is a new environment. Childcare centers are a germ fest, and they don't have a strong enough immune system yet. The only way that they can build an immune system up is by getting sick. So this has to happen, whether you send them at 4 months, whether you send them, you know, at 2 years, or you don't send them at all and then they start, you know, kindergarten or whatever. They are going to get sick a lot. Ben got sick after 3 days, and then he spent 2.5 weeks really unwell, and then I got sick and Chris got sick and everyone was sick, and it was a nightmare. Thankfully Ben has been okay since, touch wood, because like I don't want to curse him. He's been like 5-6 weeks now where he hasn't been sick, but when I say he hasn't been sick, he's not at his healthiest either. It is commonplace that they are going to be snotty, they're going to be a bit sniffly, and they're going to be coughing a little bit every now and then. Obviously, there are certain things, certain symptoms that you do not send them to childcare with. So if they have a very runny nose, if they are coughing their lungs out, if they're lethargic, obviously if they have a fever, you know, speak to your pediatrician and check with the school to see if they have any regulations in place, obviously, you know, to know when you can and can't send them. But you need to be prepared for a lot of sickness, especially if it's around flu season, but in general all kids will be quite unwell for a while. So it's a pain in the butt, but it has to happen, and it's a good sign. It shows that they are building up an immune system ultimately, so we want that to happen. It just kind of sucks. Next thing I'm going to talk about, this is a tough one. There might be accidents at childcare. Your child could get hit or bitten. Your child could be the one to hit or bite another child. And this does not reflect your child or your parenting or anything like that. These are toddlers we're talking about, you know, babies, toddlers. They're in an unfamiliar environment. They don't have coping mechanisms yet, and so these are very, very normal behaviors for children. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent, but obviously it's not something to just let go of. So, you know, you want to try and alter that behavior as much as possible and promote how you can change. So for example, whenever Ben hits me as well sometimes, you know, he's a toddler, he gets angry, boom, he slaps me in the face. So we don't just let it slide, obviously, but you know, just kind of talking them through it and saying like, listen, hands are not for hitting. You can do, what I say is, you can do slowly and gently on my face, or if you're very angry, you can go and squeeze this cushion, you know, kind of thing. And we try to just sort of alter the behavior in that way, because we want to show him how to channel his anger in a safe way where he's not going to put himself or anyone else in danger. But yes, this is a process. This is a new environment. They are probably much more stimulated than they've ever been before. There's a lot of noise, a lot of children. It's a completely new environment, and it's very frustrating for them. So these are normal behaviors, but do expect that they will happen. They might not. You might be lucky, obviously, but it is a possibility, so it's important to be aware of that. It's okay to be scared about it, because I was terrified. So far we haven't had any accidents other than Ben getting a little bit rough with some of the kids, and I'll talk about that in another point. But yeah, it's important to be prepared for that. And speaking of which, that's what takes me to my next point, which is you will notice some changes in their behavior. Again, because of the stimulation, the change in their routine and all of these things, you know, they're kids and it's normal. Like, our behavior changes when we're in a new environment, let alone these children who have no idea how to regulate themselves, how to channel their feelings, how to express themselves even. So you will notice some changes in their behavior. Certain things within the childcare setting, so for example, in our case, Ben has never expressed any jealousy here, and we've recently learned that he gets very jealous when you know, he got very close to one of his teachers, and she's like his mom there. He's very, very attached to her, and every time another child would come close, he would hit them or push them away. And this was a bit shocking to me, because when for example, I hold my baby nephew, Ben just wants to give him kisses and cuddles. In no way does he get aggressive or jealous. And so this was quite interesting to realize, you know, to discover. So yeah, that was a new thing, and I think it's important to kind of realize, like, okay, these things can happen. And also, even when they are at home, again, because of all the changes and all the stimulation, they might lash out a little bit. So they might throw more tantrums, they might become a bit more rough or aggressive. You know, they might be more clingy or more weepy, more attached. These things are very, very, very normal, obviously, and they're completely understandable. It's very good to be prepared for them. You might have some positive changes and some negative changes. They are all okay, and they will all, you know, eventually settle down and get better, and you'll all just kind of figure out a way to get through them, and everyone will adjust. But yeah, some big changes might happen, and that can be a bit scary at the beginning, but it's okay. So I've mentioned that you know, there will be changes in their routine, and that is my next point. Their routine might change drastically. This was something that in our case I was very, very anxious about, because Ben's wake time in the morning was always very short, and then he could spend like 8-9 hours awake after his nap. He only takes one nap now. From 14 months he's been on one nap, and I knew that that was going to be really hard for him, because he would maximum spend 4 hours awake in the morning. Now he's doing 8, sometimes maximum 8. So, you know, he's awake between 6 to 8 hours in the morning. Obviously, the earlier he wakes up, the longer he's going to be awake, because then I pick him up around lunchtime, and he would have been up for a long time. So that is hard to navigate, and obviously he gets very overtired and he passes out, poor thing, for a nap. Then he can be a little bit more frustrated in the afternoons. Sometimes he doesn't nap very well because he's overtired, you know. So it's just, there's so many changes also in their eating. You know, you might have a set structure. That's what we had, and again, it was like, how are we going to get through this, you know, because he's not going to be eating the same and the same amount as he was eating before when he was home with me all the time. If you are a stay-at-home parent like I am, you will also notice changes in your routine and in your eating habits. You might forget to eat because you're having one snack less, so don't do that. try to keep a relatively set routine, because it will help you as well. But yes, the changes in routine are hard. You have to anticipate them. There's not much that you can do about them, but being prepared will help, so that you can kind of, you know, get through it in the most graceful way possible. But yes, it can be quite hard, and again, combining this with the 2 previous points, there will be some changes in their behavior as well, and it can be quite rough. So yeah, good luck. The next thing that I want to talk about, and this was something that was a very big deal to me, especially at the beginning, there will be teething problems, and I'm not just talking literal teething problems. I mean other issues like communication or miscommunication between the teacher and the parents, just until you kind of build a rapport. It's very important that you do build that rapport with your carer, so that you can have a good relationship and close communication to best take care of your child. So in our case, some of the issues that we came across were with potty training. So if you follow me on Instagram, or if you've seen my video about the sign language, the baby sign language, you'd know that Ben is semi-potty trained. He poos only in the potty, and sometimes he pees in the potty as well. He still wears a nappy, but he uses sign language, and I had told them about his sign language, and they kind of discarded it at the beginning, and he had been at this point for like 3 or 4 months only pooing in the potty. And then on like the 4th day or the 5th day, he came home with poo in his nappy, and I broke down. I was so upset, and I messaged his carer and I was like, listen, he uses sign language, please, they are really simple. I will send you a video. If you can just understand his signs, this is his sign for poo, if you can just understand his signs so that he can communicate with you, because obviously it's frustrating for him. It's going to set us back with potty training when we've had such good progress, you know, and these are going to be things that ultimately they're going to happen. And then thank God, like, his teacher was fantastic, and she learned all his signs, and every time he learns new ones, she's very excited to learn them as well. And since then he's only had one other poo accident, but otherwise every day they're like, I'm like, did he poo? And they're like, yes, he signed. And you know, he'll be really proud of himself as well. It's a big deal for him to be able to communicate, and I think this is the same for all children. So there will be these kinds of issues also with food, with naps. I know that there are some parents that you know, they want their kid to have a nap, but they don't manage, or they put them down to sleep too early and they want to pick them up, you know, at the time that they're asleep. I don't know, but there will be some issues at the beginning. It's very important to have good communication with the school. Ask questions, let them know your child's routine, and you know, whatever is important to your child, make sure that you express that so that, you know, you can work together. Ultimately, your goal is to collaboratively take care of your child. So it's not just you when you're at home and them when they're at school. It needs to be a joint effort so that you all have a common goal, and that is very important. But these things will happen at the beginning. I need a sip of water. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about, which I've mentioned briefly already, is their eating habits will change. This is something I think a lot of parents get worried about, because their child might not be eating enough, or they might, they might not eat at all. Maybe they just come back with little bits of their food missing, and that can be a big concern. Obviously, we want our children to be healthy, we want them to be well fed and get all the nutrition they need. This is something to keep in mind. It's also something that I was quite worried about, and I had expressed it on Instagram, and I had some teachers speak to me and some other parents as well, and the general consensus was that when you are busier or more stimulated or just more occupied, you might not realize that you're hungry, or your hunger cues will change. And this is the same for children, and we need to keep this in mind. They are humans just like us. The weather can make a difference. The activities that they're doing can make a difference. How tired they are can make a difference. So even though we obviously want them to eat, and we want them to eat well and enough, it's important to speak to the teachers to kind of know where they're at with their food, maybe try a few different things. Obviously give them things that that they like, that helps as well. And some days they will eat plenty, other days they won't eat at all. Again, it's not something to worry about. Obviously we are inclined as parents to worry about them because we want them to be well. It doesn't mean that they're not well. Obviously if they're never eating and then their eating habits have changed at home as well, you need to look into that, no doubt about it. But as long as they are eating well at home and they have energy and they are growing well and the right weight for their age, then that is the most important thing. So the next point, which is a very important one to prepare for in advance before sending them, things will get lost, things can get misplaced. We had a shoe go missing. Thankfully it wound up being at the school. We had the lid of a lunchbox. So my two pieces of advice for this is label everything with your child's name or your name or surname, whatever, and your phone number, because if one shoe gets lost somewhere, and kids' shoes can be expensive. We had Start Right ones, which are not cheap, and one of them got lost. I was like, what are we going to do with one? Anyway, thankfully we found it. But at least if some good soul finds it, they can call you up. If you don't label things, you're not going to get them back. So label everything and have double of everything, or triple or quadruple, whatever. Have backup. It's really, really important that you do, so that you can save yourself any hassles or last minute shopping trips as much as possible. But yes, these things will happen, it's obvious. We have to work with what we've got. So the next point on my list is that you might notice some changes in your relationship with them. And while this might feel like a little bit of a heart-pinching thing to say, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But yes, because of all the changes that they are experiencing, and because of the new experiences and the new skills and everything that they're learning as they go along, and as time passes, you might notice certain changes in your relationship with them. And this can be a really beautiful thing, because, for example, in my case, I realized that while Ben is at childcare, obviously I'm getting more time to myself and I'm managing to get more work done, which makes me be more present when I'm with him. And so I feel that that bond is actually getting closer in a way, even though I thought like, oh my god, I'm not going to be with him for those 4 hours. It's going to be really hard. I'm going to miss him so much. Obviously I do, and I think about him all the time. But I'm a much better mom for it because I'm more relaxed. Because before I'd be with him all the time thinking, I can't get anything done. How am I going to get my work done? I need to do this. I need to do that. Where now I have the time and the capacity to do it by myself. And I am much less stressed. And that helps the relationship change. And also, if, for example, you have a child who's very, very clingy and needs a lot of comfort, like Ben is, you will notice that eventually they're going to be able to have some leeway and take a step back and feel safe, knowing that you're coming back and they don't need to be stuck to you all the time. And again, this can be a little bit bittersweet because you love knowing that you are needed by your child. It's a beautiful thing. It's exhausting. But then when you realize that they're slowly letting go of the reins, you might feel a little bit like, oh, okay, I wasn't prepared for that. This can happen. It won't happen straight away. We've just noticed that this is starting to happen now, 2 months into him having started. So it's a great thing, and it's exciting because you start to see all these changes happening, and at the same time your kid is growing and learning so much. So yeah, lots of beautiful things. A side note on this is that if you are questioning whether to send your kid to childcare because you feel like you're a bad parent, or because you're nervous about all the changes that that I'm talking about ultimately, and you're scared about it, I promise you there are so many benefits. And ultimately, follow your instinct, follow what your gut tells you, obviously, but it can be a great thing as well. So don't completely discard it just because you're scared of the changes. And that brings me to my last point, which I have forgotten. The most important one. Yeah, I left this for the end on purpose. It will get better. Everything is scary. Change can be scary. It's very daunting. Leaving your child with people you don't know in an environment they are unfamiliar with, where you are completely out of control, which is hard for us as parents, especially if you're a control freak like me. It is very, very difficult, and some parents have to send their kids to childcare because they have no choice, for financial reasons, for work reasons, for mental health reasons. Again, there are so many reasons and so many benefits ultimately to sending them, and it can be very hard, especially at the beginning, because you feel like you are maybe slacking as a parent, maybe you're going a little bit against your will. Until the day that we were sending him, I spent those months leading up to it thinking, no, I don't want to send him, no, I'm going to change my mind, no, I'm going to withdraw his application, I don't want to do this, I'm not happy, I'm going to miss him, he's going to miss me, we're going to be miserable, and it's all going to be too hard, he's going to get sick. And I was worried about all of these things. What if he gets bitten? What if they go back, they don't understand his signing? And a lot of these things did happen, and we got through them, and we are getting so much stronger for it, and our bond is getting stronger for it, and again, our relationship is blooming. And so yes, it's hard, and yes, it's scary, but it will get better. It might not get better after 3 days, like some people gave me the false hope of. But everyone is different, every situation is different, but no matter what, it will get better. And with that beautiful positive note, I will call an end to this video. I hope you have found it helpful. If there are any other things that you think that parents should keep in mind before they send their kid to childcare, let me know. And I will be sure to share that probably on Instagram as well. And yes, let me know if any of these points really resonated with you. Let me know what your experience was sending your kid to childcare for the first time. I love to hear these stories. I love to bond with other parents over similar situations. And on that note, I will bring this video to an end. Thank you so much for watching and for being here. And I will see you in my next video. Until next time, bye!